Hi there, everyone. Greetings on this Monday to you. This is Karen, or some people call me Shaman. I prefer Shaman. Karen is my birth slave name, serve a ticket name. For many, many decades, I came in with my grandmother learning what was beyond anything I've seen on YouTube as deep diving. And I notice all around me are a select few, all around where I am looking and perusing other people's channels, are a select few that genuinely have an idea about what's going on right now. We have utilized mama or nature in a way that's absurd, it's irresponsible, and it's not sustainable. We have been forced into multiple industries which have done nothing more than chattelize the human and other sentient animals that belong on Mama Earth. So therein destroying our environment with concrete jungle, as Bob Marley says, with doing what they've done to the food and changing it and rearranging it into food chemicals and food drugs. Bless up, good to see you, sis. Blacktop, changing the food, creating a new destructive way of life through intentional and focused social engineering, through long-range plans that have been focused upon no different than Jim Crow, no different than the medical, the financial, the religion, the academic, all of the industries of which I had to learn how will I break this down in such a simple way so that when you're not exposed to these types of things, as I was, 1965 and forward, that this is a mass farming and an exploitation of not only the human animal, but also our brothers and sisters with fin, fur, and feathers. You cannot look at the eyes of a pig, a horse, or a dog. You can't have a dog in your house and then say, it doesn't matter what you do to the pig who's crying on the truck on the way to be inhumanely slaughtered. Okay? We have to wake up, we have to care, and we have to realize that it is us, and I've been saying this on Facebook since 2010, that we generate the wattage. It is us. We are generating this wattage, this electricity that the beast is feeding off of, okay? So different sorts of images have been positioned on the plantation, the matrix, the system, so that you will constantly think of doom and gloom, so that you will almost start to create doom and gloom. So what do I have to offer that's positive for you? Because I'm going to be one of those who's going to help you get through this. You have my word on that. And not only that, but just this rise, what many of you call this morning, this AM, as you became awake, because as you are walking around after you get up from your leap, your sleep, okay, just like swords and words, when you get up from your leap, where you've been leaping into a life and other worlds, okay? You've been sequestering files and memories and having visions. They're stealing your dreams. They are. That's a fact. So the medicine that I have been bringing for almost now 37 years since 1984 began with nutrition. It began with me changing my diet in Pamela Masters' class. It began with grandmother teaching me intuition, perception, connecting, teaching me that, of course, animal communication was natural and normal. But what was the rest of the herd being taught? You don't do divination. You only turn to God for that. These are what I was taught. Your natural, you might want to call them your God-given innate, meaning they're already packaged inside of you, abilities for you to use. Now, I'm going to cover just a couple of things that I think are going to be interesting. that are just a couple things, not too much, that are positive that I'm going to ask you to go out and get, okay? Because with all the talk about the Great Reset, it's on the magazine covers, but it's been in the plan. If you were at the Bilderbergers meeting that went on every year, you would know what the plan is, but you're not there and you're not invited and you're not privy to that plan. So a couple of things I'm going to recommend that you get. You know, like when you go to the dollar store, you can pick these up, but these don't last quite as long as when you get some of the more expensive ones, okay? And this one right here, I picked up because it's wind resistant. You know, you can get these at Walmart. These are a really good idea to have in case you end up leaving your home for some reason. Now I'm going to show you something else. I've got this hat that I bought for my son before he died, a couple of years before he died. And it's wonderful because you can also lift it up if you're having to do the, the facial coverings, which is, a tradition that is not typically one that's been done in America, but you see, you can kind of pull it up. So it acts as a windshield. And that's why I'm wearing it, is because I was wearing it most of the day today. The other thing that I had bought for Zawa, my child, and myself was this. And I'm going to show you this because it's a really good tool, and it's a really good thing to have. I've got a key rack that I always keep right by my door. And so one of the things that I'm going to suggest for you is that you get into the habit of always putting your keys, and if you have dogs that you live with and you've got to get out in a hurry, keep your leashes, your keys, and a facial mask on that key rack right next to your door. So when you set them down, go, whoops, that's right, I'm going to set them on the key rack. Then you're not like, oh my God, I got up and there's a panic and there's something going on and I need them right now. Now I'm going to show you this, okay? It's a little headlamp. So it goes like this, and it goes on your head, and it's going to be bright for a minute. I got new batteries, and now I'm able to walk around at night if I want to. Now you're going, oh my God, this chick's getting really paranoid, right? So it's got a little push button. I can shut it off. I can actually adjust it if I want to. I can do this if I want to be able to look down and do something. This was very inexpensive. You should be able to pick these up at the hardware store, but you're going to really wish that you had it at some point if the case, if things happen in a certain way, you're going to wish that you had that, okay? So these little things, they look like this, and it's just really just a little headlamp. This is a very, very inexpensive one. So again, you're going to be looking for your lighters. Get a couple of them, at least get one that's the good wind resistant, that's got a good amount of fluid in it that's going to last, because I'm going to tell you something. One of the things I did was I looked at the loops. I looked at the 1918 viral loop. I looked at the Great Depression loop, and I looked at the Cold War loop. And I started really looking at all these loops, and I realized something. Then I went back and I was like, okay, my father grew up during the Great Depression. What was really a big resource back then? Lighters. Matches, lighters. So I've got a bag, and I keep, if you go to the dollar store, Dollar Tree has these for sure, and most dollar stores will have them. There's a box of the wooden stick matches. They're not the really super long ones that are cumbersome and they break, but get the ones with the matches about yay long, and they're about $1, or sometimes you get 3 boxes for $1. Get that and put them in a Ziploc bag next to your lighters. Keep your matches, keep your little headlamp. Get yourself a bottle of betadine, whatever you want to call it, okay? And the other thing is I went to TJ Maxx today and I got myself about 4 more candles, because what is going on right now is that there is a lot of plans and scams, and I know a lot of you are in a great deal of fear. Don't. Because together we rise. And I've been saying this for a very long time. Okay? When I was here, I started to say earlier, just this rise. I was mopping the floor. I live with 3 dogs, so there's kind of a lot of tidy up. When you're feeding them 2 meals during the day, and I'm cooking and mashing yams and putting different things in their food to make sure I can keep them strong and healthy too, with the change in the energy grid. We live on what we've always been told is an electromagnetic grid. But the magnetics are what is particularly changing right now. Good to see you. I'm going to try to read that when I get my glasses on in just a moment, so please don't feel that I'm ignoring you. The next thing I want you to do is I went out, and these candles are $6.99. I was going to go to the dollar store and just get like 20 candles, right? Because if the grid goes down for 3 days, 30 days, 90 days, or whatever, I have protection that I'm legally able to have, and I have candles, I have lighters, I have dried fruits that I get at nuts.com. I have a 5-gallon bucket of water in the back corner over there that's in a sealed, secured container. I have brand new water filters so I can filter my water. I know how to go out and forage, and I'm going to have some candles because if the grid goes down, it will be dark. About 30 years ago, people were speaking in Santa Cruz before my son was even born. They were speaking about how the poles would change, okay? The South and the North poles may flip, which means that the climates would become almost the exact opposite, okay? So anyway, I was going to go to the dollar store and get just about 20 candles, but I realized those candles are great on one level, but they burn through really, really quickly, and I wanted something that was going to last me a little bit longer. So I had gotten 2 surprise checks that came in the mail from Wells Fargo. I drove over to Wells Fargo and cashed them, and I kind of budgeted really carefully. And I got, this is I think it's a soy candle with pure essential oils. It's got the, it's called Rejuvenate. It's got the eucalyptus in it. So it's also antibacterial. So what I'm more concerned about is bacteria. And especially as I mentioned to you that I was so run down and sick. I was so adrenal exhausted that I was pissing myself. And you can get bacterial infections from that. You can get bacterial infections when you're detoxing. I've helped people detoxify with Parkinson's and myasthenia gravis and all sorts of issues, kidney disease, infertility, whatever. And the body is going to have to get rid of the cysts, lumps, bumps, nodules, and tumors. Sometimes they come out of the skin, right? And so this is where the Epsom soap baths, Epsom salt soap baths, you can go over to Walmart and get the Epsom salts. You can go to the natural food store. You can go to nuts.com and they sell Epsom salts. But get yourself some candles, get yourself lighters, get yourself matches, Ziploc bag, and put one of those matches and lighters in your car. Set up a suitcase that's got 3 changes of clothes, a towel, a washcloth, lighters, and a candle, and a blanket, okay? And the betadine. Okay, and then have one of these on your key rack, at least one of them for your whole family, so that you're able to turn this thing on and you can see when it's dark. Now, I went and I spent $4.99 for 2 of the small cell batteries that go in here. They go in the very back, and it's so simple. I mean, I'm just such a mechanical dork that I've been telling myself, okay, now I got to figure these things out completely on my own. So I'm sitting here and I don't have fingernails because I've done massage all these years. So I've just gotten into the habit of now fingernails actually disgust me once they start getting long, because for 18, 20 years with doing massage, I've had to just completely cut them off or you'll be scratching people, right? So, I mean, I got so used to it now that I just would automatically keep cutting them all the way down that now it kind of grosses me out because it's like they get bacteria in there. And anyway, I know it's dumb because I used to have fingernails for the first 42 years or so, but, or the first 30 something years. Anyway, all you got to do is just kind of open it on the side here. And then in the back, pull that thing back and this little back piece comes off, and get yourself, because if you just buy it at the hardware store, you don't know how long the batteries are going to last. So get yourself a set of new batteries. And then I took a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol and I cleaned the little, what do you call them? The little deals where you put the batteries in. So like I wouldn't have any problems, be like, oh shoot, I wish I would have cleaned it. Now it's too late. So in the worst case event, I'm going to use the candles this winter. In the worst case event, I'm going to use the lighters. In the best case event, right? And in the best case event, I'm still going to use this when I go take the dogs outside for a walk super late at night, right? So we're all good on that. I know you know what betadine looks like, so you can go to the store and get a little spray bottle. So if somebody has a cut in your family, iodine's a good thing. If a dog has a cut, you can use it on the dog. You can use it on the human. You can also use just pure um, transdermal iodine and just put that on there too, which is what we used to use as children. Now, I titled this live stream, Hypocrites and Hypoxia. Every time you see the word hypo, Hypo, it means sluggish or slow or fatigued or worn down or whatever. And really what's going on right now, the real true pandemic, is thyroid. And I wrote that in my book that was published November of 2017. It took me over 2 years of sitting and giving up a lot a very small summer in northern Minnesota, what felt like it for me, because I'm a Santa Cruz, Californian, of 42 years. So I was like, oh my God, I want to be outside, but I just kept over and over and re-editing it. And finally, like Christina was like, Mom, just get the book done. Like, you know what you're talking about. You've taught scores of thyroid workshops. You've helped so many people. But when I moved to Minnesota and people were filling out the wellness form on paper way back then, to come in and do massage. And that was kind of standard practice. You go to massage school and they go, get them to fill out a piece of paper. And most of the time when you go somewhere, it's your name, your address, do you have any allergies, anything? Is there anything I need to know about so I don't cause you a problem getting your massage? But over the years, because of doing massage and wellness, licensed in Cloquet, Minnesota, which I still am, I started really, really expanding my wellness form. And now I try to do it all digital on my naturallywithkaren.com. So I was speaking with Dr. Malter. He's a Ph.D. He's a psychologist. He's been doing hair tissue testing for over 40 years. He learned also from Drs. Eck and David Watts. I originally have been learning from Dr. Watts. I also have read many others that are PhDs. And I've been really reaching out and connecting with Dr. Malter. And he sent me a free copy of his book because I told him that I was very copper toxic. I was very mercury toxic, that I had rage at one point. I had blind rage at one point. I had mood issues. I had PTSD, I had so many things that when you see me give these videos, I want you to know something. I am not a perfect person. I am someone who's always been empathetic. I've always cared about the world. I've always cared about the animals. I've always cared about sustainability. I've always cared about mama. I really legit care. Okay, this is not just let me monetize my channel. Let me just make money, because pretty soon that's really not going to matter in the whole scheme of things. But my son died essentially of hypoxia. So anything with a hypothyroidism, hypoxia means not enough oxygen. Hypooxygen, hypoxia. Hypooxygen, hypoxia. Well, where do you get hypoxia? Well, you get hypoxia from many things. Is that Kim? Oh, looks like somebody's beeping in there. Dr. Malter wrote an article, and when he sent me a free copy of his book, because I'd already read 2 of his books, and the last one I read was the one I'm showing you, Shrinking the Judge and Freeing the Inner Child. Well, when there's really significant trauma, you've had a parent that's an alcoholic, you were government experimented on, you were terribly sexually abused or sexually abused at all, right? Maybe through the church, maybe through incest, a parent or another family member or a brother or sister. These leave a lot of scratches and scars on your psyche, on your spirit. Your body just kind of responds. I mean, you end up with many things. Like in my case, I've always had an extremely low sex drive, my whole life, because that's just really not been my priority. It's also classic of hypothyroidism. Dr. Malter wrote this article. He also sent me a free copy of his ebook, Freeing the Inner Child. And so I'm reading that book right now, and I always want to be the best that I can possibly be. I think it is my job, my privilege, my duty, my honor, drive to self-actualize, to expand. So it's not just about like what I look like, it's much more about like, how do I navigate through this and get to the door? And this is what I've said for a very long time. This is what I said to Nature Boy. How do I get to the door of real freedom? And that's what I'm going to be working on with you, right? So without further ado, I did ask Dr. Malter last night if I was able to read this to you. It's an article that he wrote, and I'd like to read it to you. So I hope that you enjoy it. I'm going to put my reading glasses on because I still have inflammation that I'm processing and adrenal exhaustion. I'm going to need to use my reading glasses. I think when I'm optimized and I'm feeling really good and I'm at 150%, I probably won't need that. So here we go. Do the right thing? ? Put on a mask? ? Science or politics? ? By Rick Malter, Ph.D., June 26th of 2020. In my view, the coronavirus 19 issue is far more complex than the media and the government health bureaucrats would have us believe. There certainly are medical and clinical health issues adversely affecting certain individuals, increasing their risk of death. Dr. Zach Bush has carefully studied the COVID-19 situation nationally and internationally, looking at the primary presenting symptoms, especially hypoxia. This is how he assessed the situation in New York City hospitals, and the mortality outcomes of treating the, quote, virus and not severe poisoning that brought on hypoxia. So if we're treating the virus and we're not treating hypoxia, this is what he's saying here, okay? New York hospitals, in quotes, with all the innovations and all of the technology and all the ventilators and everything else, we reached a mortality of 88%. I don't know another condition that induces an 88% mortality across a large population, end quote. Dr. Bush makes a very strong case that, quote, all we needed to do was to redirect our attention to the toxicity event, reverse the hypoxia, and then all of the downstream events, which are the fluid in the lungs, the subsequent pneumonias, the disseminated coagulation and the heart attacks and everything else that is going to happen would never have happened. This is pretty powerful. And had we treated this not as a viral infection, but actually as a poisoning. You see, Dr. Bush's analysis and explanation of virus effects and environmental toxicities are very long and complex, way beyond the sound bites of the mass media and the press conferences by the so-called virus experts. His views make a lot more scientific and health sense to me than what has been relentlessly presented in the mass media for the past 3 months. Remember, this is June. Had his views been considered very carefully in comparison with the virus pandemic narrative that the media constantly hyped, we would not have had such devastating public, quote, health policies as lockdowns, masking, social isolation, and distancing. The lockdowns have had devastating effects economically, socially, and psychologically, not to mention the intense fear and stress that were triggered in millions of people. Given what we have experienced in the past few months, it is clear that the mass media are not good sources of health information. In fact, one can seriously question whether there is another agenda behind the media campaign to greatly over-exaggerate the dangers of the coronavirus and how easily it can spread. The WHO and the CDC have provided inconsistent and contradictory information and recommendations during these past few months relating to the mask issue and social distancing. Clearly, there are at least two very different views of what is adversely affecting people's health. The major view as presented in the mass media and by public health bureaucrats is that a new virus has spread quickly, creating a pandemic that requires political interventions as well as medical treatments. The other view, as presented by Dr. Bush, New York City, is that most individuals showing serious health conditions are experiencing environmental poisoning, leading to hypoxia. These two very different views result in very different clinical assessment, diagnosis, and treatments. I believe that Dr. Bush's view is by far much more medically sensible than the virus view that depends on emphasizing, quote, germ theory, end quote. The latter, the second, also provides a rationale for developing and mandating a new, untried vaccine to bring the virus pandemic under control. Thus, political, social, and economic issues are involved that go way beyond medical and biological science. Thank you, Dr. Malter. Politicians at all levels, federal, state, and local, seem to feel that they need to do something about the virus pandemic that has been created as much by the mass media as actual health statistics. In fact, the health statistics are highly suspect for several reasons. The epidemiological models that health bureaucrats relied on to dictate disastrous public health policy turned out to be gross exaggerations of what was actually occurring in different countries in regard to cases and deaths. One of the tests, the PCR that is being used, should never have been used for diagnosis of the virus infection, according to the man who created the test and was offed August of 2019. You'll see the video on my Facebook Naturally with Karen page. The other test yields so many false positives that its use is also highly questionable. In other words, the accuracy and validity of the tests being used are very weak. An even more serious issue involved a directive from the CDC telling doctors to put COVID-19 on death certificates even when there were other causes causing the individual's death. This policy clearly distorts the COVID death rates and the statistics. The other vital aspect of the COVID virus issue has to do with people's overall health and especially their nutrition status. Overall health, nutrition status, we're building on Hypoxia Summary. That is closely related, this nutrition status is closely related to how their immune system functions. In 1971, Roger Williams wrote his book, Nutrition Against Disease. His nutrition research led him to coin the term biochemical individuality. That reflects the great variation in people's nutritional biochemistry and ultimately their health condition, including their immune system. He wrote that the, quote, nutritional microenvironment of the body cells is crucially important to health and that deficiencies in this environment constitute a major cause of disease. This is precisely why we do hair tissue testing. And I'm gonna, once we finish and conclude here, I wanna bring up another two things. Nutrient minerals are the foundation of good health and a well-functioning immune system. Henry Schroeder, MD, observed that, quote, minerals, Henry Schroeder, MD, observed that, quote, minerals are the spark plugs of life, end quote. 40 years ago in Phoenix, Arizona, doctors Paul Eck and David Watts advanced nutrition and health science to a whole new level with their research on hair mineral analysis data. They validated Dr. Schroeder's view of the importance of minerals in supporting good health, including the immune system. They also validated Dr. Williams's view of biochemical individuality. You're an individual. You don't get treated just because you have a disease code. Okay? And the importance of good nutrition at the cellular level for optimum health functions, including the immune system. This is the context in which I view mask wearing during the coronavirus pandemic. Conspicuous by its absence in the media coverage, means pretty questionable in the media's coverage, of the current pandemic is any mention, there's no mention of the importance of vital nutrition factors in stemming the spread of disease, especially in different toxic environments that compromise the health of the body's cells and tissues. Furthermore, wearing a mask blocks the intake of adequate oxygen levels that are vital for the health of cells. Masks block the intake of adequate oxygen levels that are vital for the health of cells. Blood oxygen levels have been shown to drop substantially when a person wears a mask. Russell Blaylock, MD, a retired neurosurgeon, nervous system surgeon, pointed out how dangerous wearing a mask can be because of the effect of blocking adequate oxygen intake. It adds stress to the body. It can weaken the immune system. He does not believe that there is scientific evidence that mask wearing by the general public protects people's health. Dr. Bush's views can be further supported by the nutrition research discussed above, as well as Dr. Blaylock's views on the dangers of wearing a mask. If Dr. Bush's views are scientifically and clinically valid, then the mass media hyping of the coronavirus based on highly questionable statistics amounts to a massive health fraud that has had devastating consequences. If the agenda is to sell billions of dollars worth of a new untested vaccine, then the media and the virus narrative is what you want. But if you are truly concerned about public health, then much more complex issues, including nutrition, science, and environmental toxins, needs to be addressed. Thank you, Dr. Malter. Thank you, Dr. Malter, for giving me written permission to read your article to the people, for giving me written permission to read excerpts from your book. It was Dr. Malter who went to task after attributing so kindly and so faithfully to Doctors Eck and Watts, of whom I have trained under Dr. Watts extensively, and I am a practitioner, an HTMAP. An HTMA practitioner is an HTMAP. So in case you don't know what that credential is, we test the cellular health by looking at your nutrient minerals sufficient to putting them together as ratios, looking at trends based on those ratios, looking at what would possibly cause some of these levels to go up and down or be completely deranged, like by mercury. And you see, in 1995, the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, had one of their doctors write an article. And suffice it to say, as Dr. Malter went to task on this, they damn near closed down laboratories like Trace Elements that were doing bona fide, science-based, amazing work for people because they told people one thing: they couldn't count on using hair tissue testing. It was not going to be anywhere near as good as serum blood testing, which is false. It's false. You see, it is entirely false because you are what you eat. So as the field and the matrix and the plantation is manipulated and your foods become more food drugs, as we see people that have dogs that are so itchy they can't even stand to be inside of their own skin and dropping fur and, suffering terribly, it's because of their poor nutrition. It's because of vaccinosis, excessive amounts of vaccines and chemical products that people in good faith trusted and utilized. People trusted. They trusted because for a very, very long time, It was the status quo. It was mandated when you went to school. Well, if you're going to go back to second grade and third grade and fourth grade, you need to go into the doctor and get your physical exam. Okay? We didn't do all that before that. Just like it was mandated that little girls, when I was going to elementary school in California, could not wear pants. We had to wear a dress, and then we could maybe wear long shorts or pants under it if it was really cold, or tights. Then when I was in elementary school, all that changed. Dr. Malter is the one that went to task to call out that this was in fact a media smear campaign. And it almost closed down hair tissue labs that have been around for 40 years. EPA approved, science-based, quoted in PubMed many times as zinc being a far superior sample to be tested through hair tissue testing. You have doctors like Dr. Selig, Dr. Malter, and many doctors who I personally would trust with my own health, and I wouldn't trust many. Some specialize, like Dr. Malter, in psychology and hair tissue testing. Some, like Dr. Selig in Chicago, in Illinois rather, that do overall care. If we keep proceeding in the way that we are, who's going to be able to afford buying water filtration and new filters and clean food source and all the supplements that you're going to need? And maybe even buying air, because now you're already buying water, so to speak, right? And you got to buy air pretty soon. Who's going to be considered the entitled and the privileged ones that are going to be able to live healthfully? Really? It's bad enough. It is far too off-putting to feel as though those who came in later are really honestly not aware of the drop in IQ. I know it's painful. Nobody wants to look at it. We don't want to hear about it. Come on, we got enough negativity going on. Please don't drone that stuff in either. But the truth is, the thyroid pandemic, the adrenal burnout, the constant fear-mongering, the constant chattelization of every sentient life force on this planet has got to stop. This is what resource guarding is when you use all these industries and you believe in them, you participate with them, and you don't see a way out. There is a way out. Stop participating with them to the degree that you are able. I stopped participating with politics. I stopped participating with owning a television almost 37 years ago. I stopped participating with eating factory farmed animals and eggs. If you're adrenal exhausted, eggs are going to produce a large histamine effect, so you're going to have more food allergies. You may not even understand where it's coming from. Because when you're adrenal exhausted, you're going to have way more allergy type issues and food sensitivities. You get tired more easily. I'm in adrenal exhaustion right now, pulling up out of it. But I work with a great deal, and I would say 50% of the women that I work with, hundreds of women that I started off just doing food and nutrition. I built into detoxification. I became an herbalist. I went over and studied Ayurveda. I went off to yoga school and paid $2,500 to become a certified Kemetic yoga teacher. I studied mind body from 1984 when I first began opening Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And I was like, whoa. And then I put it into practice for almost 18 years in Minnesota as clients would come in and they'd always tell you about their pain. Everyone's got pain. I looked at their wellness and I thought, whoa, why is such a high percentage of my clientele taking Synthroid back in the day and levothyroxine? What's going on? And then I realized, oh my God, I have a very extensive thyroid issue. This is what's behind all of my gynecological issues. This is what was behind my mental health issues that the people in the family, oh, she's kind of crazy. She's kind of out there. She's just kind of an artist. I mean, you get the people that are like, oh, are you a hippie? God, please don't say that. That just totally just rips my parachute. I don't like being called that. I really don't. If you would like to see this article that I just read by Dr. Rick Malter, June of 2020, please go to my Facebook page, Naturally with Karen. You will see that I posted it today. So you can take it and copy it. You can share it. You can print it off. That's what I did today so that I could write this, so I could read this for you, excuse me. So I went over to my mail place, got on their computer and sat there and waited for their computer that takes forever, and paid for a couple of copies so I can, hand them off to people now once I've read them to you, because now I'm done. And why have them sit on my table? Why not hand them to other people or post them somewhere? When I have clothes I don't wear, I wash them up, I take them out, and I put them places where people may need the clothes. If I have extra food and I made a hot meal and I know I'm not going to eat it and I don't need to cram any more polenta and vegetables, sometimes I take it and I put it in a styrofoam container that are leftovers from my son's funeral event that are clean, that have never been used. And I go take it out and I put it over at the park across the street. I take my pen and I write a heart on there and I say, made with love for you. Someone loves you. This is polenta and vegetables, and it was made with love for you. And I put a couple of my chocolate truffles inside there on a little napkin and put the polenta. It's like a three section styrofoam. Do this. Do this. Go out and feed the animals, because their environment is also stressed, raped, destroyed. We've got to stop this, because mama and all of her babies, everyone's baby is important. All of them are important. I've seen deep divers. I could take you on some really serious deep diving, but I would lose all but about maybe 3 or 4 of you eventually, because it would be too much. We hear the ancestors. We are so intuitive, but we've shut it off. We've never developed it. We heal ourselves. I've been showing you that I heal myself. I've been showing you that I reversed my hair, that my hair is thickening up, okay? I've been showing you how to get a glow on your skin, how to get your eyesight better, how to get energy, okay? I've been showing you. I've been showing you how to do it. All right? You can do it. I'm 59 years old. I've had enormous stress and I've had enormous joy. My son is with the ancestors. And as I started to say twice now, I was so excited to do this today. I really, really wanted to read this from Dr. Malter. And I'm thankful he gave me permission to do that. I was here in the kitchen, I'd mopped the floor. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. I put my arm up, I'm here alone with me and the dogs. I was like, I can feel it. We have a chance. Sometimes I start to worry and I'm like, oh my God, there's no chance left. Look at the people that are straight sleeping. Okay? I put my hand up and I was like, you know what? The one thing about the magnetics changing is that as you're thinking something, you need to start really thinking, hey, I'm going to make this better. I'm going to change this. Okay, so let me educate myself. This is what's going on. This is what they're thinking. What am I going to think and change it? Because we generate the wattage. And right now, we always had the sun and the moon. We always had a photovoltaic source that we photosynthesized under. We always had a circadian rhythm that we lay down in the darkness. We rise with the sun. But as you know, people are completely off balance. They're laying down and not getting up till 9, 10, 12, 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon, sleeping all day because they're exhausted. If you want to get your bars back up on your battery, you need to get to sleep in the darkness of the moon, ideally, as Cynthia Koppel taught me in Ayurveda, by 10 o'clock at night. Okay? So that's really what I had to say today. I had some dog treats back here next to my blueberry smoothie that I finally got home, doing some big laundry at the laundromat. Have clean blankets. So that if you don't have a power source and it is winter and you are living somewhere cold or you are living somewhere at sea level, have a bag packed. Okay? Just listen to me on that, because then if you don't need it, you can just say, boo, hey, I didn't need it. Thank you. But if you need it, you need ID, you need some Band-Aids, you need that betadine, you need a candle, you need a blanket, you need the lighters, you need the matches in a Ziploc bag. And you need probably other things too. Okay? Thank you. Oh, let me see what you guys had to say here. Oh, you're welcome. Dark Winter. Hey, Tara. Good to see you too. All right, you guys, have a wonderful evening and think positive thoughts, but also prepare. Okay, just prepare. It's okay to have natural hair. It really is. And it's really a fun journey because on some ways, some people look at me sometimes and they're like, well, it's kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah. Now I've kind of come to the point where this one over here, check this out. I was so busy with the house remodel, I was just kind of putting it back all the time with a ponytail. And these three came together on the left side of my head. So I'm calling her triple goddess, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Okay. They're all kind of stuck together. And there was a time, I think I mentioned this on a live stream, that I was going to kind of go to the dreadlock lady who I had start my dreadlocks last time, and have her kind of cut them apart. I thought, no way. I'm just going to go ahead and let them do what they do. And so the only thing that I really do is that every once in a while, I just kind of go like this and make sure that they're apart a little bit. Not even once a day. It's not even like that. See how this one's forming? You can kind of pull it down a little bit if you want to, if you don't want it too kinked up. They will make themselves. But since this is my fourth time, the first, second, and third time, I was like, oh my God, everyone's looking at me. Oh, gee, whatever. And if you feel like that so much, you can take this hat that I bought Sawa. Okay. You could do that, or you can wear the other hats that I wear because it's wintertime. You can wear a bandana because you're, wearing a facial diaper. You don't have to worry too much. All right. Have a good evening. And thank you for joining me.